What do you feel is the greatest obstacle in your life that you've had to overcome so far?
Myself.
Just you. Jump right in.
Myself.
Yeah,
Look, I think,
you.
yeah, I think
Oh,
massive, massive. I think we've all got stories that play a massive part that sort of build up to the resistance in self and resistance in life, conditioning. So I can't say that I've had an amass, like, oh, I can't say that there's one thing. However, abandonment has been a role that I've played, and very unconscious role that I've played for a very, very long time. And I had no idea I was playing this role in my life. Had no idea how it was affecting me through my life. None whatsoever. So for me, like, I think to understand that wound effectively that I've been carrying and how I played, um, out relationships in my life, has been amazing to understand that pain body within me. I shared my story last week with a beautiful group, and it was really interesting where I shared from a place that, oh my gosh, guess what? I've tried to abandon my husband for 20 years as well.
interesting you
I
say that
can't,
because can you hear me? I
yeah,
went researching about abandoned issues, and it was saying because it's new to me, and that that's what you can do is self-sabotage in your life and push people away because you don't think you're
absolutely.
worthy of having that individual in your life. Is that right?
You don't think that. You don't think that. It comes from a place of protection because your heart's been broken effectively. So adopted, it's completely unconscious. You just froze. I'm not sure what's going on here either. Yeah. Um, so I didn't know I was carrying the wound whatsoever, and thought I was completely normal. Everything was, as I only knew, effectively. And then I started to realize that these patterns kept repeating in my life, where I would meet people, people would abandon me, I would have relationships and abandon relationships as well, and abandon myself in it. And it was definitely underlining worthiness, but it's because of my heart being armored up because of past pain. And you keep attracting it. As much as it's so uncomfortable, you keep attracting it because it is actually comfortable as well, if that makes sense. Because that's the game, the dance that you knew how to play. I knew how to play. Mm.
What was the past pain that created this cycle that was going on
Yeah,
so
and
that
look,
other people
and
can
most,
identify? Yeah.
yeah, and it's not just because of being adopted, because I still had a beautiful, loving family and all that kind of stuff, and I'm just trying to think where to start with this. So it's really going, like this
I want to get you
abandonment.
there. Can I hold you
Hey,
there? Jump into your
yeah,
story. Go, tell us what
yeah,
happened. So just go
yeah,
straight into it that we can all get, because I might have a background, but other people don't. So just
yeah.
launch yourself in there. Be vulnerable and brave.
Yeah, look, I'm actually okay with all of that now, and I think what really came to my understanding is, like, a lot of this subconscious stuff happens in your womb, in the womb of the mother. Yeah, so this is, if you imagine, you're in a womb of a mother who didn't understand, who wasn't ready for you, and who had a lot of shame around being pregnant, who was actually shipped away to have me. So I was actually basted in shame. It wasn't basted in love, it was basted in shame. So this follows through. This becomes your DNA that you start to work with and you start to play with in your life, completely unconscious, completely unconscious, that you're playing out in this role of in your life. And this is no detriment to my birth mother. I love her, I know her. We're all just doing the best that we can. And so I come into this world feeling very unsafe, because I was unsafe in the womb, come out into the world and unsafe. I'm not held, I'm not loved. My basic needs for survival, like being fed, I had to scream for. And, I was in a hospital, for 6 weeks alone. So you've got a child, but I don't know who else is jumping on here, but you imagine this newborn child, you can't nurture it, you can't give it the love, and you're not receiving the love. So bit by bit, you shut down, completely unconscious. So you start to have these dances with relationships. My parents, I can only love them as much as I knew how to love them. Relationships, my husband, you meet, I met him, and obviously I learned to love him to a degree where I felt safe. But as soon as any sort of, any time that wound started getting rubbed, like salt, you'd shut down again. All completely unconscious. So it was only when I've started to become conscious of these patterns and behaviors and how they've played out in my life, I can go, there it is again. I've co-created that. I can take responsibility for this. I can heal that part of me. I can lean into that. And that's when that healing journey came, and it's about abandoning myself. This is all part of it.
I don't mean to jump in. I'm going to jump in. What was the trigger that made you realize these behaviors? Because I know a lot of people are aware, like haven't got that consciousness that you have, that what's going on. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you have an awareness.
Yeah.
What was the thing that made you click to realize that you were behaving this way?
Well, doing healing, self-healing on myself, going, to courses and having mentorships who were able to see that within me as well, because we've really got, what I've learned is that there really is only about 5 core wounds that most of us hold onto, and we play out now.
5 core wounds? Could you share with them today? Yeah.
I'll probably go completely off track. Yeah, I'll probably just go, I'll go off track on that. And let's do another one on that one where we can concentrate on those wounds.
Okay.
But we've only got about 5, core wounds that we play out. And most of us have got abandonment in there at some point, because as soon as, your mother might have said, go away, Amberlee, I haven't got time for you right now. I can't see you right now. I can't do that with you right now. So bit by bit, you get abandoned. Mummy, look at this beautiful picture that I've made. Oh, honey, can you go away? Can you show me that later? So, all these little things actually do play out in our lives as well. Completely unconscious. We're mothers, we're human. I've done it to my son. This is not about pointing fingers or blaming anybody. It's just being able to understand how we respond, in these situations. And once we start to get some awareness and understand, that's triggered me, ouch, that's hurt, we can sit and feel, that's when, that's that pain body. That's that part of my pain body, Eckhart Tolle, this is where I've learned that word from, Eckhart Tolle. He's amazing in regards to understanding that pain body that we have. It's just a part of us that's it's unconscious, effectively, that has not been seen. And so when that pain body gets rubbed, it triggers us, so most of us want to deflect that trigger back and go away, it's your fault, it's not up, you've poked me, you've made me pain, you've given me pain. Where if we can turn it in and then take self-responsibility and use those triggers, because that's all they are. They're just beautiful triggers to go, hey, that's a part of me that was hurt. That's a part of me that was rejected. That was a part of me that wasn't loved. I didn't know how to love it, and now I can love it. Now I can see you. I can bring you to the light. It's not in the dark anymore. I'm not trying to hide it from you, and I think that's been a real gift in my recent healing, is being able to talk about it. I'm not ashamed. This isn't my story. This isn't who I am. This has just been my awareness that I've been able to bring, to myself. And if I can share that with other people, they can go, oh man, yeah, wow. When I push my husband away, I'm not really pushing him away. It's probably because he's triggered something in me that I was triggered, maybe 10 years ago when my father pushed me away. If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, because what I found out today, because I knew a little bit about Eckhart Tolle's work, but about the pain body, and it's like when it happens in a young child, it's basically some sort of hurtful emotion that's not metabolized, and so to work through in the moment, and so it becomes like a scar, and therefore it turns into the pain body. And so what you're saying right now, as I hear it, is that things can trigger you back into that pain body. So when something happens to you, it's really just like, I refer to it as like an inner child that hasn't been reasoned with, and it doesn't know how to process the event. So it's never about you. And what's wonderful about my
Yes.
not my 3-year-old son, my young
Oh,
son, he's 21 months old, is he's learning emotional regulation. So he's getting
mm,
emotions, which is energy in his body, and he doesn't
mm,
know how to process it. And what I find is what we can do, and I know my parents were at fault at this, and it's not because we're all conditioned by our parents, and they're
mm.
conditioned by how their parents taught them. So they
Oh,
don't mean to do it anyway, but the way a child reacts is they're waiting for our reaction. And what we've got to do is show them, no matter what feeling they're having, is we've got to allow them to
mm.
express it. That's what you're saying, and allow them to
Yes.
embrace. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think totally, look, totally. I think attentioning child is awesome because it's just expression. It's just, emotion emotion, that's all it is. It's just an expression. And with our own selves, we don't know how to regulate. We think we do. We think we do. We've never been taught it. We've never been taught
No.
it. And even this today, I was volunteering at a beautiful event on the Gold Coast, and I'll speak about this later. But we were just talking about emotions and like really the charge that we give that emotion. We have a trigger. We can have a thought. We can have a bad thought or another thought about it, and that's another way to look at it. And I think healing. There's so many different ways to heal this emotional pain body. For me, it's to feel it and to own it and to lean into it and go, yeah, that's part of me, and love it. Bring that little girl back into my heart, bring her into my body and hold her and ground her and know that she's safe. It's just a part of me. It's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing to push away, because that's what we've done. We've pushed that part away. And children, our kids, are the biggest healers, because they mirror it back to you. Like, I know when my son was little and he used to have moments and I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, because it was confronting, because I couldn't understand why he was carrying on like that, because I was all about, I was taught to suppress and control, not express, suppress. So, children, I think, are just the most beautiful gifts. I think we are the ones that teach them. A lot of BS, they teach us.
And the interesting thing is, I've got right now I can see I've got 2 teachers that are listening as well. So it'd be really
Yay.
fascinating to hear your perspective of this, of even because you'd be triggered as a teacher. I know I was a replacement teacher. I would be triggered by children. Like they would say
Oh,
things. I remember one instance when I was teaching, these girls waited after I did this tutorial on how to do something, and they asked me how old I was. And then they told me I looked like a 50-year-old, and I bang, triggered right in the heart. Do you know what I mean? Like that, it's like they knew, and I didn't even know. I was stunted. I didn't even know how to respond to these children
mm,
based on they had triggered me. And I know my child does that, and we're talking about adults do that. It's like, how can you do in a professional setting, and let alone how do you navigate it with your child every time your son triggers you? How do do you
oh, I'm
lean
still
into it like you're
learning.
saying? You're still learning,
Still
yeah.
learning. Look, I think there's times that you can take a space back and you can go, hey, wow, that's really about me. And I can get to say, hey, that's the way. I can choose different ways to respond and go, hey, that's my own pain body. I can now respond differently, or I can still splat back. If I splat my pain body back to him, and he'll splat his pain body back to me. Like I think, and he's going to learn something about that too.
What you're explaining beautifully too is what our parents did to us. That we live in an age now that we have access to information at our fingertips. So, like when
Yeah,
I can't understand something with my son, I Google it and I can
yeah,
find a result. Whereas my parents said, what you're saying is our parents splat things on us, and then we splattered back at them. Like our
yeah.
responses, we triggered them and they triggered us. But it's really fascinating, and that's what I find about kids is that you get to grow as a person based on them triggering you.
Oh,
Does that, like, it's constantly,
oh,
it's a fine dance, it really is,
yeah.
like, and it's like you've got to be, what I understand, and this is what I hear what you're saying too,
Mm,
is you've got to be the conscious parent in this
yeah.
scenario too. You're the adult, you can't respond in your primitive emotional ways. You've got to go, well,
Mm,
hey, what is it about me? And it's not a reflection of me being a bad parent because they're having this
no,
emotional response.
no.
It's just about Well, and do you, obviously, there are probably times that you step away and there's times that
Yeah,
you can keep going despite the fact that it's been a triggerment. Yeah.
totally. Because I'm human. There's no way I'm a perfect parent whatsoever, but at all, never, ever, ever will I declare that. But I've become conscious of my behaviors in the interaction. I think that's where it's the consciousness that you can go, hey, yeah, that's my stuff. That's not his stuff. He's just triggering that in me. I can see that, and I can take responsibility, and I use the word heal because I think it is a bit of healing that we need to do, or we can be gentle with ourselves, or just, accept that part of us. So next time that happens, yeah, I still may get triggered, but it's not going to be as quick, and it's going to be softer, because I feel like there's still many, many layers to all of this. It's not just, oh, I'm triggered, I'm going to fix that, and that's going to be solved. I think there's layers within that. So yeah, I try
Yeah,
my
I don't mean
best
to
to
jump
lean
on
in.
that. Like, you try your best. Well, what I see is like an onion. What happens is you peel one
Totally,
layer off of the trigger, and then there comes another, and then it's just, but it's never. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet of onion skins because it's just
totally.
keeps going and going. It doesn't matter how much you work on yourself. But I think a lot, and what I'm hearing from you is that you have a lot of kindness to yourself in regards of how you respond to you, like in the moment. You don't get mad at yourself. And I think a lot of people
Mm.
forget, no matter when something happens and how they react and they reflect upon their actions, that they're actually human after all. And that's what I
Oh,
hear what you're saying, is that you're kind to yourself. Even if you react in a certain way, it's like, well, now I know what I've done. Next time I know, now that I know better, I can do better.
totally. And and I say sorry to my son all the time. I say sorry,
Really
like, because
important.
I really important, and that was, I definitely wasn't brought up in a, and that's no, I'm not pointing fingers here, but I was definitely not brought up in a family where a parent or an elderly would say, I'm sorry. It would be not very often, if at all, that there was a sorry in that, especially as a child, because they were superior. Parents were very superior, adults were superior, and the child was under them. Where I feel like we, as conscious parenting, are bridging that gap in there, and we're seeing people as human. Little people are human, and they've got feelings and emotions and souls, and like we have.
Well, Kim Davies made a really good comment. She said,
I
now is
can't
the
see anyone's
time.
comments, so big
Can't
apologies,
you?
anybody. No,
That's okay. Well,
that's
I'll read it
okay.
out.
I'll
She
do a
says,
catch up.
she goes, now is the time of being aware and mindful of emotions and allowing children to explore and deal with these. This was never in the public space when we were
Mm,
kids. It was always suck it up and deal with it in your own space. And there was never any modeling. And it's true what you're
that's
saying is
it.
there was no modeling. It was about being quiet. I know it was a chain of command. The parent,
Mm,
the grandparents. I remember we used to go to my family dinners, and it would be grandpa would say something, and I remember one day my grandparents made, and this is how my family communicated, they would talk about each other when the other wasn't around. It was like showing concern, but it really, if I reflect upon it, it's like they should be saying something. And I remember, I stuck up for my mum because my mum wasn't there. I said, how dare you say that? And it was disrespectful for me to turn
yeah.
around and say, have an opinion. And he was wrong, and there was no apology in saying no. Like there was no, and I think it's really important as adults that we model to children that, like you're saying, that we make mistakes, that we do, and we are human, and that
Mm.
we own our mistakes. Because what kids do is, and I know I did this myself,
Yes.
we internalize that we've got something wrong with us, and
Mm,
kids are energy beings, and they can
mm.
read our energy. And so if
Oh,
something's off in us, they can pick it up. And if you don't have a conversation with them regarding that, they internalize it to themselves that
mm,
it's me that's wrong, rather there's something wrong with mum or dad or with a teacher or so forth. Like I remember I taught when I was pregnant,
mm.
and I had to communicate to my kids because I was sick that I was feeling ill, because there was one child in my class that was so emotionally intelligent. She'd always ask me, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I had to
Yeah.
communicate that I didn't feel all right on the inside because those
Mm.
kids were internalizing it, that there was something wrong with them. And we have to have that
Oh,
conversation.
and they are so in tune. They are so in tune with our energies. We as adults, and I'm only speaking for myself here, I think, like energy was not a thing back in my day, it was never a thing, it was, any sort of intuition that I had was pretty much, would have been squashed because that wasn't okay. That wasn't okay. So, your voice or anything like that wasn't valued in as a child. I forgot where I was heading with that. Sorry.
We were talking about energy and the value, and then how I talked about how you would be shut down as a child by older adults, not
Yeah,
having a say.
And I think as conscious parenting, because so many of us have stepped into that conscious parenting arena now, and we're seeing our kids very differently, and we're seeing that they're very energetic beings. And, like I look at my child, he's 13, nearly 14, he's so much wiser than what I am, because he's so much more in tune with himself than what I am. I'm unconditioning myself to become in tune.
And that's what I think, that makes a lot of sense. And what I think is really important is that we work on ourselves as parents. And that's hence the reason why I created this series. It's the work we do internally, because if we do that now, we save our children from being subjected to the feelings and, for me, the inadequacy I felt, like the uncomfortability, until I worked on myself. Does that make sense? So if I do the work on now, I'm saving myself years of work of when my son's a teenager and when he's an adult. And I can see that another parent who has an adult child, and I suspect her name's Dawn, is a friend of mine, that she's put a lot of work in herself, and her daughter Rochelle's an amazing being. And it's because of the time she invested in her. Works out in the long run. And that's what you're saying here, is that, the more you invest in yourself, and that's why your son is where he sits. So don't discredit yourself. That's why your son is sitting like an enlightened little being, because you're investing on you as well.
Oh, look, yeah, I think, and we choose a path. We choose our parents. We choose this lifetime. We choose the journey. We choose, we unconsciously choose this, and which really, I don't know, it's a bit scary when you look at it that way, because you feel like a little bit out of control. But like it's just beautiful gifts that it happens this way. What changed my parenting was a book by, I don't know if you've heard of her, Dr. Shefeli.
I've seen her on Facebook. She makes great videos, but I haven't sat down and
Conscious parenting, that was the whole, and it was like, oh wow, and that really like flipped the parenting aspect. And I think as well, that started that self-inquiry where it really was, because that's where she speaks about, that when our children trigger us, it's because of our own stuff. It's not really, if they shouldn't, no one should be triggering us. If we are completely conscious being, nothing would trigger us ever. It's a journey.
But then I always wonder if I was in that state, I know I have a drama addiction, and it's I used to be like very much like the drama. Hence the reason I seeked out a life as an actor. But I didn't realize until I was living the drama every day. Like I was living it anyway. I was seeking the roles I was chasing, and I wonder always well, would I exchange my life to be a Buddhist monk? Whereas I know there's complexities where they're working on themselves too. Or would I have where I've got, and that's what I think is the biggest blessing about my life, is that even though my circumstances and weren't ideal growing up, they've given me this beautiful array of paints that I can paint life with now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like everything's a gift. Everything's a gift. We can use it to, like paint a power kind of thing, isn't it? Like it's that everything that we can, and I think that's, oh, sorry, I've got incense burning. It's a bit of a strong one. I think what is so awesome about this journey that we take, it's that self-responsibility. That we sort of, in a way, get our power back, because as soon as we're blaming somebody else or making the circumstance outside of ourselves, we have no power in it. We have not so much control, but we can't turn anything that's happened in, any circumstance. Like, for example, my abandonment, I could blame everybody for that and make it everybody else's fault and, the circumstances in the life. But instead, I've looked at this and gone, wow, man, I can actually really use this to grow myself and to become more conscious and to be able to, share this story out into the world so other people can learn from it.
On that, because I know of somebody that's similar to you, that situation. Did you go out did you seek out your mother, your birth mother, or did she seek you?
No, I seeked her. Yeah. It was incredible story. She was in New Zealand. I spent some time with her, and I just want to share this. Like my birth mum and my adoptive mum, the first time that they met, I love this story. The first time that they met, they looked into each other's eyes and they were like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like my birth mum was like to my adoptive mum, thank you for looking after my baby girl. And my adoptive mum going, thank you for giving me a baby girl. And I know, it gets me every time. And I look at it, like the gifts, look at the gifts in that. Like, it's friggin' incredible. So amazing, hey? Like, it's just so many gifts.
I want to say how brave it is for you to go out there seeking her, because I know people that are in the same situation you and that they're too scared to go and do that. But to have that connection where the two mums met each other, because your birth mother would have thought her whole life, what happened to you? She would have, I know of people that have been in the situation as your birth mother, and like every year of the birthday, and I'm crying about this because I know how much they feel about it, is that the mum would go, I wonder what they're doing, where are they?
Yeah.
What do they look like? What's going on, And it must have been for her, a hard choice to let you go.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, even, we're talking about like being in the womb, and I can't ask her these questions. She lives on the Gold Coast. She had a stroke about 10 years ago, and so she can't speak. So I can't ask her those questions, because when, prior to the stroke, I was probably a bit more, didn't care so much about the story, didn't understand, the layers within it. What was I heading to? Oh, well, my brains are. I've been up since like 4 o'clock this morning.
I see you in a big event.
Smushed.
But you were saying how your mum lives in Queensland now, and that she's had a stroke, and that you originally didn't want to ask her these questions about what it was like in the womb or before the time when she was pregnant.
Yeah, and I think, that's the other aspect, like being in the womb, and so she's, as a young girl, she had to toughen up to be able to do what she had to do.
You think about it, how many, I don't mean to be rude and ask you the question, but how old are you, Sharron? How old are you?
I am nearly 48.
So 48 years ago, what was society's response? Like to now with people that have a young birth, or anyone who gets pregnant, they're not married, but 48 years ago, how did society look upon a woman? Like you said, she was sent away.
Shame,
The
guilt,
shame,
fear. Yeah. And she was stripped away. I mean, I met her parents, and effectively my grandparents, and there was a lot of shame. There's a lot of that stuff there's a lot of stuff that's not, I don't know, a lot of stuff that was protected, which is fine. I get that, and I understand. I totally understand. So there's some of the stories that I've heard, I'm not sure if they're really true or not, and that's okay too. We do what we have to do.
We do what we have to do, and it's just amazing.
And everyone's doing the best that they can. I really believe that.
I believe that too. And then we got so caught up. It's funny because it can come back to that pain body reflection, is that we get so caught up in our pain body and our past. There's my dog doing something. Pain body is that we can't.
There's some light.
We can't see the truth in it, if that makes sense. Like you're saying, everybody's doing the best they can.
Totally.
And if we're triggered and by a pain body, we actually don't. And one of the most profound things I've ever been told in my life, and it really put everything into play, because I come from a background where parents chose their addictions. My mum had a love addiction and wanted to fix people all the time and quite codependent.
I
And
am
she
a
brought a person.
recovering fixer.
Are you?
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to fix this man, and this man wasn't he was a young man, healthy, and he had a really horrible outlook on life, so he was abusive. And one of the most profound moments in my life, somebody told me hurt people, and he used to
Yep.
sit in my head, this voice of him. And one day I thought, no, I'm going to drive to where he's from and confront him. And I sat on that couch, and I'm getting emotional about it now because I couldn't see it when I was growing up because I was so young. He hurt me because he was hurt. Like, he came
Totally.
from an environment where his mum just packed up the house and left him and left with his two sisters. And then he was sexually and physically abused throughout his life. And I remember sitting there and
Abandonment.
asking him,
That's abandonment wound as well, hun.
oh, there you go. And I said to him, why? Like, I turned around and said, why did you hurt me and my sisters? And his pain came up and he said to me, he said, I never intended to hurt you. He goes,
No.
he just said, I wanted you so much. Like, I wanted a family like yours so much that when I had it, I didn't think I was worthy of having it.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I
It was
asked him,
uncomfortable.
it dissipated all the anger I had. I don't hate this man. I love him now. He's the father of my brother, and I love him. I don't have anger towards him because he only hurt me. And now I understand. You're telling me it's an abandonment wound. Is that he didn't know how to deal. He always wanted our family, and when he had it, he didn't know how to deal with it.
No, because it's receiving love, giving love. It's sort of like, don't get too close because you're going to leave me.
And that shifted that love for him on a different level. Like it says, hurt people, and if we get caught up, like you're saying, in our hurt, in our pain body and the triggers of the past, we're actually not seeing, hey, it's not me. There's something going on with them. Like, it's just, there's something deeper that we don't understand.
Yeah, and I think when I look at the pain body now, I can see it's like it's not really that person. It's something outside of them that we can't control. Like, they can't control as well, that pain body, because it's just a reaction. It's not really them, because their soul is love. Their reaction is just this pain. And by me doing my healing around my abandonment stuff, and so I'm just checking if I should be sharing this. I'm going to share it because there's worth in it. I've got an adoptive brother as well, and he's got a massive pain body. He lives with us, and I have blamed him for so much stuff in our my family's life because of his pain body and the way he showed up in life, and what that's created in our family. But by me doing some internal work, I can see him now differently. I can see his pain body and see how much pain he is in, that he just can't even look at it. He's in so much pain. So I don't blame him anymore. I can see him. He still triggers me because I've it's okay, but it's so different now. It's so different because I can see him with more compassion and more love for he's just doing the best that he can as well in his pain body that he's been carrying around for his 46 years of his life.
How do you recognize that somebody is in their pain body? Like, is there a key that you can recognize it? So, because
everybody who gets triggered and splats is pain body.
And splat, because I think I understand it, but I'd like the viewers to understand, what do you mean by splat? So,
well, as soon as you reflect back out, like if somebody triggers you and you want to bounce back onto them, or you want to make them wrong and you're right, so the ego starts to play because I'm better than you, you start to martyr up. All of that as well is your own pain body, but you also can see that, like, their pain body. Like my instant, where I think you watched that live that I did a few days ago, or last week it was, where I had this interaction where I was like, I felt like I'd come from a place of love, and I still do to this day. But then, in the transaction, in this communication, I triggered the person's pain body because the response was very different, and then that triggered my pain body. So all of a sudden, because as soon as she triggered my pain body, I could feel it in my body. Because I'm like, oh, that hurt, you know, and I'm starting to, I want to make her wrong. So I can notice that within myself, which then once I notice it in myself, I could go, she was able to trigger, I triggered her pain body too, you know, and I didn't mean to trigger her pain body, but I obviously did by her reaction back. So I was like, okay, I get that. And I sort of felt like, I'm sorry, you know, it was a bit of, I'm sorry I triggered your pain body because it wasn't really what I intended to do whatsoever. And I think when we get triggered, we can either use it to understand it, or we can keep deflecting it and being the victim in it. If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm thinking about what happens is, because like you're talking about in a relationship, and there's two people in it, obviously, and there's children involved in it, and there's both pain bodies are triggered, and then the children witness this as well. Do you know, like the children witness what's going on? But if you have the conscious awareness that, oh, okay, I've been triggered in this scenario, how do you handle it? Do you think, is it better? It's not ideal to repress your emotions of what's going on. Do you have a discussion? Because from my understanding, and I don't know this as well as you did, is that people in their pain body you can't reason with them anyway. Like even when they're sitting in that, there's no reasoning. You can talk to them afterwards.
Can you reason? Possibly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like, and I was thinking, like my son, when he wants something, I can't reason with him in the moment.
No,
there's no way, because yeah,
it's the same with you. You know, like I'm sure I'm speaking for yourself, but I'm sure you know when your husband or whatever is like, you know, because you know whatever you're in that moment, and you're, you know, it's like you're grasping to whatever the outcome is. And you know what? I think, you know, I'm learning to have conversations that are difficult and with no expectations. You know, like conversations can go like shit. You know, hard conversations can go, you know, south. You know, because people are, you know, we're not educated, we're not taught to have hard conversations. So if you're trying to have a hard conversation with somebody who doesn't want to, who's not willing to have that hard conversation, more than likely it's probably not going to go well, if that makes sense. So I think for me, I stand in, I like to have more boundaries around that, and I'll have those conversations, because if I don't have those boundaries, if I can't tell you, hey, what's cool and what's not cool within, you know, for me, and you cross over those boundaries, or if I don't set boundaries, you're going to be an asshole anyway. And then, you know, I'm going to see you as like, oh, Amberlee, you know, like she's just done this. But if I've confessed and say, hey, Amberlee, come over, don't drink, you know, whatever, come over. This is not in that particular way, come over, these are the rules. But, you know, if there's stuff that's there that we need to set some boundaries around, like it's clear, being clear with boundaries is kind. I have no doubt about it. No doubt about it, because, yeah.
A good friend of mine, Garang, that's just said, thank you for explaining how, making men understand what mothers go through. How do you create your boundaries? Because I know that's, for me, I've always wondered about, like, what do you define as a boundary in your life? Because I think it'd be really good for me to learn, and other people as well. How do you define your boundaries?
Brene Brown is my mentor in boundaries massively. And like the other week, I had to really, I Googled and I referred back to what is her framework around boundaries, because I had to set some, and I'm going to repeat them. Boundaries. My brain is a mush. I'm going to put the details in this live for everybody, because I do apologize. My brain is a bit mush today. But really, I think boundaries for me is to be kind. Boundaries are being kind. Boundaries is saying what's cool and what's not cool. Because if you're stepping over that, it becomes uncool, and I'm going to feel icky about you. You know, and I think setting boundaries is not, again, you know, something we've never ever been taught about. We've never been taught boundaries, because as soon as somebody, like, we know, you know, when that boundary is being crossed, you know, with your kids, it's like, you know, you set boundaries with your kids. That's cool and that's not. You know, that's quite acceptable in our society, to say, hey, you know, my son's Connor, that's cool and that's not cool. And if, you know, that's what I expect from you in a way. So it's the same with, any relationship with your husband. It's like, you know what, that's really cool when you do that. When you do that, that's not so cool. And it really makes me feel this way when you do that. And so for me to love you, and not conditions, but for me to love you in, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry, this has gone off track. But
what you're saying to me too is what I hear you're saying is about boundaries, is what's okay and what's not okay. And you've got to define them in every aspect of your life. It's not just, I also feel like not just your husband or your children.
No.
It's also in relationships with people in your workplace. You're saying, is it kind or not kind? And if it's not kind, it's not okay. They've overstepped that boundary. And something I've learned is that if people overstep those boundaries, it's okay not to have that person in your life. Like we think that we have to constantly do people pleasing, and it's not okay to do that. It's for ourselves and our self-worth. We have to define those boundaries. And when people overstep them, you can tell them this, and then if they're not willing to respect it, it's okay to say goodbye to that person.
That's the word that I'm after, respect, not it's not the conditions of love. It's just like respecting my love, respecting, what I need from this relationship. It's not, controlling or conditioning. That's what so that is the word that I definitely, it's respecting. So 5 o'clock, we're coming online live at 5. And if we did this every week and I consistently turned up at 5:15, and you're really clear, you've said you need to be showing up here at 5 o'clock, and I'm not, you're going to go, well, hey, you're not really respecting my boundaries, my needs here.
Too, because I know one of my sisters is really good about that, especially time management. I always thought you have to wait around, and she's like, no, 5 minutes late, that's it. It's my life, it's my time, it's the most valuable commodity I have. And it's about that. Dawn is writing some really good things here. She's saying braving the wilderness boundaries, what's okay in discussion and what's not. And R is for reliability and A is for accountability. So totally. Reliability and accountability, and that's the truth.
That is the truth. Pete, we know how it feels. We know how it feels when, I think we know how it feels when boundaries are crossed within ourselves, and we know what it's like when we push the boundaries with other people too. We know it.
And I know I can do that too. And I always have to self-assess my behavior and go, am I being kind or not? That's one of my big mottos in life. Would I rather be right or would I rather be kind? And it's about, because it's there,
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, totally. I'm still learning. I'm always learning. I was even talking to somebody today, it's like every day you've got to learn. Like I've learned something out of this conversation that we've had today. Always be open to learn and not think, I've really come from a place of like really thinking I knew it all. And I just don't.
What I've learned is there's two mindsets in the world. There's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And growth is the one that you're talking about. You're always learning, where it's fixed is everything's stuck. Like it's just your intelligence is at one level, your talents, your skills are all at one thing. And it's not like life is this life of balance and going through it. And we're always learning and always changing and navigating to a different place. And if we're not open and receptive to learning and learning from others, we become stagnant and still. And what I've also found in myself, and that's something I really struggled with Zion, because after Zion was born, a lot of things were going on. I wasn't growing as a human being, so I felt stuck. I really felt stuck. And to remove that stuck, like that feeling of being stuck, what we need to do as human beings is continue to learn and grow, continuously strive to be a better human being, to help other people, be of service to other people, being of service to other people, you're being of service to yourself.
Totally. We're here to change. We were here to change. Our body is here to change every day. Our cells are changing. We were born as a baby to grow as an old person. We were born to change. Our outer body changes. We age. We get grey hair. We, we get rolls around our tummies. Our boobs sag.
And that's I want to jump on that. I actually saw a beautiful post that you had on your page, and it it's actually quite confronting. It had a picture of a young girl cutting the rolls of fat off with her scissors, and you had a really amazing response on your Facebook page regarding it. And what it hit me at the core is I used to dream of wanting to do that. I used to think if I could cut a limb off my arm, like an arm off, and lose 10 kilos in that space, or cut those folds of skin off, and it's like how we define beauty. And I think you wrote a really beautiful and brought it. I'd love you to share on that, because you know how it's like it's a beauty
and
myth.
it's been my journey. It really has. It really has. We've got so much defined in what beauty looks like. In our face, in our hair, in our body type, the weight on the scale. Especially, what that figure says on the scales. When you jump on that scales, it's either going to say you're friggin' worthy or you're not. Whatever figure you have in your head, that's what it's really saying. You're worthy to be loved. You're worthy to be seen. You're worthy to be, influencer online. All of that. And as young kids, it's the same. But I think what happens is, especially this day and age, we've got a lot of social media. We've got lots of pictures, that we can refer to. As we're growing up, there was Dolly magazine and Cleo magazine, and we can refer back, and that was our baseline of what we should look like. And now we've got all this photo, like on our phones, we can go, oh, slim face, big eyes, big lips.
And people have surgery to get that, big lips, big eyes, big, yeah.
Oh, look, and I struggle with it, and I'll bounce with that too, because I'll go, oh, it's vain if you're going to go and get all that stuff done. But I'm like, well, I ain't going grey yet, so I'm just as vain as you, the journey is, we've got to know that we're more than just our bodies. There's a body, mind, and soul here, and if we can start communicating and really looking at each other in the eye and in our own body, and see ourselves as beautiful in what we have in front of us after a baby, at 20, at 15, at 30, at 35, 55, 65, and embrace the change that our bodies go through. And for me, I've struggled with that. I never did, same thing. I was so unconscious of my struggle with weight until I started to become unconscious, and all of a sudden I started putting on all this weight, because it was like, oh my God, I think it was like, you ain't going to look at that yet. And I think the journey back to loving myself and loving my body was just about taking care of my body in a kind way. And speaking nicer about it and going, yay, cool, thank you, legs, and thank you, arms, for supporting me today, and thank you, ears, for being able to hear you tonight, and thank you, eyes, for being able to see you tonight, and all of that being really, taking it to a place of gratitude, for our bodies. Like, we don't even...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, back.
I jumped out. Sorry, It was just an alarm. It came up. I have an alarm that tells me I'm a money magnet. It just went off. It's like, hello. Because it's like, we're talking about, I heard it's about, for me, a big transformation of how I looked at my body was is that my son, someone told me how powerful I was because I could hold a child in my body. Like, I didn't recognize how powerful it is to hold a child in my body, and to, like, how beautiful it is. But 3, it's about the appreciation. At one stage, I remember I used to harbor a little bit more weight than I have now, and I had an epiphany in a Bikram class, and I started crying because I realized I had a buffer. My body had put a buffer around me, a layers of fat, because I was throwing such hurtful comments at myself. I was telling myself I was fat, I was ugly, that nobody would ever love me based on the way that I look. And I'd been doing that since a young child. And the amazing thing is once I started showing the appreciation to my body, I started showing respect. And then seeing it that my body's a machine, it's not a piece of art. And two, the weight melted off. The weight literally melted off because there didn't need to be this buffer between me and my hurtful things. The hurtful things that I was constantly saying. Like, and I know a big point of that is because I was molding my identity based on how other people outside me saw me, thinking that if I was this beautiful vessel, you know, if everybody else saw me as beautiful, maybe I could see me as beautiful too. But it doesn't work that way. For people to see your beauty, it's not, because this is, I've had friends, and they're not my friends anymore, but they were stunning, like, you know, 10 out of 10 women, like they're 10 out of 10. But in some of these friends, they had no substance to their soul. So their beauty disappeared within weeks of knowing them. Whereas people that I thought were very, I don't like to say plain, but they weren't what magazines see as beautiful, but more that I got to know their souls and their substance and who they were, they became like pieces of art. Like, and I don't even not just women, men too. Like there's like people of my friends that I've like, I never realized I never realized how handsome you are. You know, and it's because of this. It's their heart. It's the soul. It's what they're breathing out. And that's what I think that's one thing I'd love to go back and tell the younger me is it's not about the appearance. It's not about the physicality. It's really about the heart that you have and the love and how kind you are willing to be to other people and just sharing.
But you got to believe it.
Yeah,
you've got to believe it. You've got to believe it. You have to. You can. Hello.
Are you getting called away? I'm going to let you go away.
No, I'm sitting outside. It's gotten really dark. My son's just come out to feed the dog.
I've seen your son and your husband. Is it your husband up the background in the window?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. I'm sitting under the kitchen window. I thought I'll get a bit of light because if I have to walk away to turn the light on. But wait. And I think we've got to be mindful of the words that we use around our family. You know, I've been totally guilty of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting fat, or, you know, I'm unfit, or, you know, like, you know, negative language around, you know, my body. And it doesn't just affect women or girls, young girls, it affects boys as well. And I know this to be true. I've got, you know, I know this to be true. And, you know, it's up, I think, it starts with us. I think we want to fix our children and protect them, but we need to be honest with how we're showing up, and how, you know, how we're speaking. And it starts with us, not our children. You know, children don't give a shit what we say. They see what they see, and they, you know, they react from that place. You know, and they hear. You know, it's not us speaking, you must eat this and you must eat that, or, you know, do exercise, or, you know, or the, you know, do. You know, we have to role model. We have to role model it from a healthy way, you know, going and getting surgeries, and, you know, and I respect, it's just a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid to the true emotion underneath it. And it's tough. It's tough. And I still respect people who have done that too, because I do understand. I get them. I see them. You know, I really do. And I'm not judging them. It's just that, you know, I think from my own journey, I feel like that's only my opinion too. And and I have to own that opinion, you know, that I think it's still, you know, a bit of a Band-Aid. But sometimes we need the Band-Aid to be able to face what else is going on. Yeah, you know, right. And you know, and that's the gentle approach. It's just sometimes we need to do what we need to do to be able to do what we need to do next.
Yes.
And whatever that is, you know, it's the same with myself. You know, I could bag myself out for, you know, behaviors and what I've done to my body, but that's not going to do me any good.
No,
you know, no, it's not going to do me any favors. I can just look at, you know, going forward and making those changes and messing up and being willing to mess it up as well.
Yeah, like having a human experience and being self-kindness. Like I used to berate myself, thinking that was the motivator. And what I've learned also too, as the beratement comes, we self-criticize self-criticism is there as a coping mechanism, because if we berate ourselves bad enough, it creates an armor around us. So it doesn't matter what anybody else looks at us. Nobody can
Yeah.
hurt us as much as we can hurt ourselves. And for me, that self-criticism was like a big motivator to get me moving. But then it becomes like a disability. Like it becomes to the point that you are so
Yeah.
mean to yourself that you don't even want to get out of bed. Like that head and that
No.
mindset, you don't have the strength, or you no longer have the integrity to follow through on the things you want to do because you doubt yourself based on these horrible thoughts. And it's like you're
Yeah.
saying, self-kindness, like we have to
Mm.
be kind to ourselves, and that's the
And we
beginning. Yeah.
And I think the tip there, that I've learned too is, those moments where you feel really darn good about yourself. We all have
Yes.
those moments, and we have to anchor that feeling. We have to anchor that feeling and remember that feeling. So when we're going off a little bit and we, maybe not being so unkind, so kind to ourselves, we can anchor back into that feeling where we're feeling really kind to ourselves and come back to that. So that becomes the anchor for how we want to show up, and really it's in the feeling. Everything. Often we think we have to think it.
No.
Thinking's just here. We have to feel it. We have to feel it all, embody it all to be able to make it an embodiment movement. And like, this is new stuff for me, Amberlee. This is pretty new. I've been on a bit of a journey, but like truly the embodiment is only really starting to fall into place. And I can really feel like I can step into myself, and it doesn't matter what's going around me anymore, who's judging me, who's disconnecting from me, because as long as I've got backing myself and not abandoning myself, that's where the healing comes, when I stop abandoning myself and anchoring into this deep feeling of love, because that's what it is. It's returning to love, from the inside, not from external sources, and I think, positive parenting, that's done us so bad, because our kids have gone, they're waiting for these beautiful affirmations all the time. Good boy, good girl, good boy, well done, amazing. So they don't know how to regulate themselves. They don't know how to say, yeah, I've done a really good job here. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Really, what I think is not important. It's really how you feel.
Yeah. And that's
in the
something.
moment. So,
there's something we try to teach. Well, teachers, like I remember learning about it at university, versus intrinsic, which means internal motivation, which extrinsic motivation. And it's a really complex thing, is that you have to have those conversations with your kids. Well, what makes you feel good? And about them feeling good about what they're doing, and not looking for us as parents to validate everything that they do, because we don't, and it's what they say, the generations that are coming up now, is one of the issues that they have, is that they're looking for the rewards to constantly get, where they want to be. Well, where's the
external
reward for this? But we've got
external.
to teach this. Yeah, it's all external, whereas we've got to teach them, well, we're doing this because it feels good. And it's like you're saying, it's got to have an open conversation, and I've learned that with my son, is having open conversations. And something I found really blowing away is that I'm talking about emotional regulation, is that we think that we only have to teach our child to regulate emotions based on anger and sadness. We actually have to cultivate joy. And
absolutely, you can't.
Oh my gosh, whereas they didn't celebrate the big wins, and as parents, you've got to teach your children this dance. You've got to teach them joy and love. You've got to teach the spectrum of emotions.
So and Brene Brown says the same thing. Like, you have to be able to feel. You can't have just one and not the other. You can't have joy and not have sadness, and you can't have sadness or anger without joy. It's the whole spectrum. Like, and we're not taught. We're taught to just be like this, not be angry and not be happy. Be monotone, no emotion, because that's safe and that won't trigger you. If I'm happy, that might trigger you. If I'm sad, that might trigger you. Or trigger.
And it's and I should let you go running soon, but that's the human experience. It's about emotions, and it's about feeling the emotions, and not being afraid to feel sad, joy, anger, resentment. But it's about not sitting in those emotions too long. It's about processing those emotions so that you can go through life, process them, see what's going on. And I hear what you're saying too. If it's a trigger to it, what is it? Can I let it go? peel that layer off, it's gone. And then if it reveals itself in another way, it's okay. But we're just processing. And that's what I think people don't realize. We humans, we have emotions, which are chemicals that are released in our body. And they go flowing through our body, and we can make the choice to keep them stay harder and ignore them, or we can let them go through. And once we process them, our body metabolizes them like every other chemical substance, and we can move on to everything else. Because like, I love that you just said that, mentioned Brene Brown's work, and that she talks about you have to have anger, because you cannot have joy unless you have anger. You know, you've got to have the spectrum of emotions throughout life.
Yeah, and there's so many emotions we don't even talk about. Like, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. You know, there's people just, we often just think of this anger and happiness, and there's so many different emotions within that. Oh, I could talk about this stuff all day, truly. I could sit here all night with you and just talk about this stuff.
I know there's people. Well, we'll have to schedule another one, you and I. But what I want to talk about before we go is, and I said about it earlier, is that I didn't know you at all. I didn't know. And I was talking about the educational platform that you and I were a part of. And I put out that I wanted to have conversations that people were too afraid to have, that these conversations are there, so that I can create a digital village where families can access information. So not just even families, people, everybody, it doesn't matter who, to work on themselves, because we live in a society that does that. And I met you through this amazing educational platform that they're a part of. And if they want to know more, they can reach out to either you and I, and I'm going to make sure that I've got a link here for your page so that they can do it. Or even if they want to ask questions about your life, there might be someone that's listened to this and that they're in the same, like, have abandonment issues. Maybe it's similar to yours or not. Are they quite welcome to reach out to you and talk to you?
Look, absolutely. Like, reach out. I don't profess to know everything. What I promise is that I will share what I know and pass you on to somebody else that may, who'll be able to support you. Like, I think that's really important to know know my limits and know, what I only know is what I know. And, and just going back, to the online community that we're a part of, that has been fundamental to this growth that I'm talking about here right now, because I think, being in an online space and having an online brand and showing up, it really is a place to be able to see some of your crap.
Yes, you're right.
And it's like, oh my gosh, it's there it is again. And like, there's an energy in it, and and it's been the journey, and I've done other work obviously outside the online platform as well that's really complemented it. But what's the online education system that we're a part of has kept, how that's played in my unfolding is the consistency, because because showing up online, I have to be, it's kept me consistent with moving and unfolding, and I talk, like I've got my group that I have running is midlife whispers, because I'm a middle-aged woman now, and we start to, midlife crisis, I don't call it a crisis. And Brene Brown, I love her work, and she doesn't call it a crisis either. And I think, okay, I can't think what she calls it, but I call it an unfolding. It's a beautiful unfolding of being able to see what's happened in the morning of our life, because I call that the morning of our life, and now I'm in the afternoon of my life. I'm in the second half of it, and that's taken from Wayne Dwyer. It's not mine, but it's like, these are, and that's what these people are. They're teachers, and they share their wisdom, and so we can share it, so we can create that ripple effect. That's what it's about, And yes, the online platform and the online community is, it's the bomb. It's the bomb. It really is. It's like, you can't package it into words to explain it to people, the connection and the vibration. And it can be sound really weird and woo-woo, but there's a vibration, there's a container of consciousness, because this is not just about online business and making money and doing like that. It's a container of consciousness who everybody that's in there is only in there because that's why they're in there. And that often we come into it and we don't even realize that we're in it before that. And then all of a sudden we're in there and we're like, oh my God, this is like magic. This has got like potion, and this is going to create this magical ripple effect, and it's going to affect our kids. And like, that is, you know, like, oh my God, I've become so much braver since being in this community.
You're right. And what I found, for me to reach out and do it, it taught me, like I was talking about integrity before. I always showed integrity to everyone else. I was always honored on everybody else's word. If they said I had to be there, I would. But I didn't show integrity to myself in the respects of I'd have all these ideas and then I'd shut them down. And what this community is allowed, I jumped into the community and it's allowed me to invoke my own integrity. And this was one of the things I wanted to create. And the community gave me the tools and the means to do it. I wanted to have these conversations. And that's what the community's done, like this educational platform's done for me. It's putting my dream into reality. And I didn't know. But my husband and everybody else is complimenting me on how I'm showing up different. And that's because I'm honoring my word, like my integrity and and my life has changed in this complex and amazing way. I discussed the other day about how I went to an acting audition and I didn't even care. I used to base my self-worth on somebody else telling me I could act or not. And I left that room and I thought, well, I can act. And the other actor did his best job because I gave him all I could. And to me, I would be 48 hours thinking, well, did they like me? And now I think, well, I don't care. And then I actually said to myself, which is something, well, maybe I don't want to be an actor anymore because they get to use my image. And I never thought of that. Like, I was like, and that never came through my mind. I was like, my image is my image. I was like, I don't think I want to sell my image to anyone anymore. And that's because, do you know what I mean? Like, this platform and you know like I said, if anybody wants to know more about it, this video is not intended about promoting it, but we're talking about it because we just love it. We just love it
totally.
And I'm so grateful, Sharron, for you being my first episode and jumping in and sharing about you, and I suspect I will be having you back. And I want to say thank you to all my viewers that have been watching. I from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, everybody. I cannot see the comments, so I do apologize, but I will go back and reply to every one of you. So thank you so much for joining. Or who's watching the replay and all that kind of stuff. It's a long one. So
replay too. That's what's great about Facebook is that we do it live on Facebook. And then when I bring Sharron on next time, you know what? I'm going to put her up, make sure you put a post up, and then you can ask her questions that you can ask her on her experience in life, because that's what's amazing about this is that, you know, you've got a story and everybody can learn from your story.
Oh, yeah. And that's it. And those, you know, and I think that's the thing, you know, like the permission is here, is like anything that may have resonated with you, take it and keep sharing that. Yeah. And somebody else share it. You know, this is not just, this is the idea, it's the ripple. It's everything's a ripple, you know, like, and take it and use it and own it, you know, take it as your own, you know, like truly.
That's it. And that's what everything is too. All those great teachers that have taught us stuff, they've just processed what somebody else has taught them and put it into their own words.
Totally. That's it. It's not, this stuff ain't new. It's just, now we've got platforms to be able to share it, which is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. That's it. Well, Sharron, on that note, I better let you go. And I know my husband's probably hanging out to bring my son back in.
My dog's like scratching at the door.
Get me out. Exactly right.
Beautiful. Well, thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Lots of love. Bye.
Love. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.